Hey, let's go! I love this intro music, by the way.
Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Pick Your Brain Podcast, a platform to showcase creatives, social issues, mental health, and community empowerment. I'm Simone.
Mike D, what's good?
What up, folks? It's Champ. You know who this is.
And today we have a special guest with us. Her name is Meera, and she's based in Houston, Texas, and she's a speech therapist. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Meera.
Hi, my name is Meera Dieters. I am live at you from Houston, Texas, and we're going to be talking a lot about my practice that I started pretty recently, last year actually, Super Speech Solutions.
Oh, nice.
You from Houston? Is that what it is? Did they say Houston?
H-Town, I prefer.
There's actually a part of New York, there's like Houston Street. They call it Houston.
Really?
Yeah, but it's like, it's spelled like Houston. So I used to be like over there like, oh, that's Houston. Like, they're like, no, it's Houston. But anyway.
Not the same thing, yeah. But cool, I didn't know about that.
I think there's a Drake track, isn't it? Like Houston, Atlanta, Texas, Vegas, something like that.
Something
He's like,
that.
all my exes live in Texas.
Nice.
All right, so getting into it. So for those that don't know, can you give a brief explanation of what a speech therapist does?
Yes. I think a lot of people don't know what we do. So speech therapist and speech pathologist actually mean the same thing, or speech language pathologist all mean the same thing, just to clarify that. So pretty much speech therapists do everything from the neck up. So that can include cognition. It can include, things related to thinking, like helping with memory strategies. If someone has had a brain injury, stroke, with adults, usually, sometimes, of course, that could be with kids. In terms of children, there are also a lot of things you can work on. That could be speech, which has to do with how you sound when you talk, so your pronunciation. Or it could be language, which is how well you understand what people are saying, as well as how well you express yourself verbally. In terms of language, it also could be working on social skills, which sometimes you hear called social pragmatic language or pragmatic language. And that's especially with children who are autistic, certainly need help with social skills. And also feeding and swallowing is a whole area as well. So in terms of that, there can be a lot of different things we cover, but swallowing up is more something we cover after someone has had a brain injury or stroke as an adult, or for example, someone who has dementia, Alzheimer's, things of that nature. Where progressively, their muscles may be getting weaker and weaker and things like that. So that can affect swallowing. It could mean that they're choking. We do actually sometimes work with a radiologist to, see if we need an X-ray done to actually see if the foods and liquids are dumping into their lungs or not, because that can be a big concern, a big risk for aspiration. And then in terms of feeding, that can be also a lot of different things you can work on with children. But one example would be for autistic children. A lot of times they have difficulty with feeding just because they have sensory issues. So essentially that could mean a kid might eat only 5 foods. And you can hear that called, being a picky eater. I like to call it being a food explorer, just because I think it sounds more positive. But essentially that means in terms of food, they may only like certain foods because they don't like how certain things smell or how they touch, or they only like certain types of textures. So to summarize, there are a lot of different things you can work on as a speech therapist.
That's interesting.
Meera, where have you been all my life? I need you.
For pronunciation. But that's interesting that you mentioned the food and swallowing part, because that's something I've never really thought of as, a speech therapist would work with. How does that work with, especially for children, let's say that they're picky eaters? How would you really work with them to get them to eat other foods? Or do you even try to get them to eat other foods?
You can, but it's a very step-by-step process. And I think parents or even other professionals often assume, hey, you put a new food in front of a kid, they should want to eat it. Yeah, that's not how it works. There are a lot of baby steps that come if you think about it, there are a lot of baby steps that come before any of us want to try a new food. Really, we look at it, we want to see how it smells and things like that. So essentially, you can let them play with the food and explore and not make them have to eat it. So you can have them play with the food outside of mealtime so they can actually touch it and see what they think. But really, the first step, even before that, is just to keep the new food on the table during mealtime to see if they can even tolerate having the food in their direct vicinity or space.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
But there are a lot of steps that build up to actually trying the new food. Quite a few steps, actually. But like I said, I think most people skip to the, hey, they haven't tried that food. Well, yeah, it's not surprising.
Yeah.
Are any of us picky? Are any of us picky eaters?
No, I don't think I am.
You
I'll try
eat
anything.
everything.
Yeah.
You see it, you eat it, huh?
I mean, a little bit, not too much, but one of the biggest things is I am lactose intolerant, so it's just sort of like I try to minimize that, but I love pizza. It's one of my favorite foods, so I'm always just I have like a whole pack of Lactate in my car, so
He's ready. He's ready.
And you just had ice cream too. So.
Yeah.
Funny.
I popped some Lactate before I came here.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh. So what age group do you usually gear towards, or is it just any age group that you prefer?
It's a pretty wide age range. I mean, really, I can see anyone from about 1 all the way through someone in their probably 60s, 70s. Most of the population that I work with currently is the pediatric population. So mostly I'm working with kids, I would say 3, sometimes up through high school. Usually for the most part, probably the elementary school age kids.
Okay. What's the difference between working with children versus adults, would you say? Like the main differences, and what are the similarities as well?
Well, I think the similarities, I mean, you're still working on targeting goals, but the way you work on the goals is very, very different. Because if I'm working with a child, it's very play-based therapy. So, you know, a lot of other professionals, especially when you work in a school or anywhere else where other professionals, you know, you're taking the child back to class or picking them up, they kind of think, you know, we're doing fun and games. Well, we are playing a lot. I mean, that is the whole nature of what we're doing, because like I said, it's play-based therapy, but it's targeted play. So I know the goals we're working on. So I might have a child, let's say, for example, working on their S down, but I know they like to talk about certain kinds of animals. So we might be talking about those animals, but I'm watching what their tongue is doing for their S pronunciation. Versus if I'm working with adults, you obviously aren't going to make it play-based. It's a different kind of functional therapy. It could be, you know, the other thing I forgot to mention is accent modification is a whole separate area of speech therapy, and actually something I specialize in as well. But let's say I'm seeing an adult for accent modification. Well, that's usually going to be more functional goals related to them moving higher up in the workplace. So the last client that I was working with last year, to give an example, he's actually in the oil and gas industry. And I had actually been working on presentations with him. So we would read articles, or he would tell me about what he was doing in a presentation. And so that way we could talk about the actual pronunciation of his sounds and kind of talk about which are the difficult words to say. So I think the functionality of it just looks very different, and the whole approach is really different, but similar because you're working on specific goals for that individual client.
Yeah. And you know how people say, like, you can't teach an old dog tricks, and that's kind of hard to teach, you know, older people how to do certain things. Would you say that in terms of like speech pathology, that's true in a sense, or is it kind of like the same in terms with like children and adults?
Before you answer that, Meera, I feel attacked.
The accent.
I'm older, by the way. Anyways, go ahead.
So I got to be careful how I answer.
I'll just play.
I'm just kidding. I think it depends on the individual client. I mean, I find that for the adults that I have worked with in the past, I think it depends more on motivation. And sometimes I think it depends on other factors. I mean, unfortunately, I've worked with, in the past, I specialized in working with people who have brain injury and stroke, specifically in the adult population. I think it depends on the individual client, because for people who are more cognitively there in terms of their thinking skills and memory, their motivation and their understanding of what you're working on is going to be very different than someone who's not, unfortunately, sure where they are and what they're seeing you for.
I did want to affirm that learning concept in terms of the best way to learn is to play. And so, yeah, a lot of artists in essence are like trying to explore other ideas. So they play in terms of how they express themselves. And that's how they expand their development in terms of ideas. So, yeah.
I like how you bring up that how motivated they are, and like how you said like play and stuff. Because it reminded me of like my grandparents. Because I have one side that is very like on Facebook, and they know how to use Facebook, but then on the other hand, my other grandparents refuse to use Facebook, and they're just like, I don't understand. But I just feel like because they're just not motivated enough to use it and to like actually learn and play with the app. So yeah.
It's interesting that you say that, because I have to brag about my own grandfather. He's 95, or goodness, he may be 96 years old. Wow. He's on Facebook. He uses Gmail. You can FaceTime him. He has an iPhone. I just think it's so cool.
Very tech savvy.
Yeah.
Yes, very tech savvy. Yes, and he lives on his own too.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he travels and everything too. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that.
96.
So,
you said? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be like that when I grow up.
Same.
Yeah, my grandmother had actually passed away last year, which was unfortunate. But she lived until 99, so clearly she lived a long time too. Yeah.
What's the key to a long life?
I had a feeling you might ask. So a lot of people in my family are vegetarian, so clearly that's a thing. I am too.
I feel attacked again.
It's funny.
Well, I would just say mainly diet and exercise, I think, plays a part too. But I think also just keeping your mind busy, because for a long time, even after my grandfather retired, he actually lives in Texas as well, in Amarillo. But he would also actively help people in the community. And I think if you keep your mind busy, that's really an important thing.
Yeah.
Yes, on the physical and in terms of just the idea of just your mind being active is the best way to exercise your...
Yeah, I've been eating a lot more broccoli lately. And like
the baby trees. You like baby trees?
Yes, I love broccoli. And like after I got my COVID shot, everyone's saying like, oh yeah, like we were feeling so shitty and like they couldn't do a lot of things. And then I got the shot and I was like, wait, I'm fine. And then I was like, it's because of the broccoli. It's the broccoli. So I was like,
you never know. Could be.
I have a question for you, Meera, kind of off topic.
Yes.
Do you like purple?
Favorite color. I get asked that a lot. I wonder why.
Oh yeah, and your brand is purple too. The butterflies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that your favorite color?
It is.
Okay. Just wanted to ask.
It's okay. Me too. I really like purple. Purple and green, like Barney.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, might as well go around. What's your favorite color?
Yes, group poll here.
Shoot, I don't know. I kind of have like 3-ish.
Okay. Talk about it. Let's go.
Yeah, like it depends, right? And it's sort of like color combinations. That's kind of for me more, but typically I love red, blue, and a white mixture, or red, blue, and black mixture, that sort of stuff. So yeah, so it depends. It's kind of hard for me to like pinpoint one thing, because it's just sort of like, no, I don't want to be limited.
Yeah.
Well, y'all can guess what I like.
Yellow.
You are wearing yellow.
Yes, my favorite color. But yeah.
That's fun.
All right, SpongeBob, we got it.
That's funny.
So, you're doing a private practice, correct? Or
I
is
am,
it?
yes.
Okay. So what led you to having a private practice, or do you also work with school districts? Are you contracted with them too, or is it just primarily just your private practice?
Yeah, so how I started the private practice is actually an interesting story. It took the pandemic for me to start a private practice, apparently. So I'm not one of those people who had always planned on starting my own business. That was not a lifelong dream. It's not something I'd really thought about too much at all. I think maybe a little bit when I was in my 20s, which was a little while ago, we'll just say.
That was like 5 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Okay.
Something like that. More than 5.
Okay.
More than 5, yes. But, I had the opportunity to start working from home during the pandemic because everything shut down, as we all know, right, for quite some time. So at the job I had at the time, suddenly everything went on to Zoom, and I realized, hey, working from home, this is actually quite cool. I can work from home and I don't have to drive anywhere. And it's really convenient. I mean, you don't have to drive anywhere, and you kind of feel like you have more time to get ready, just more time to do things in the morning. And so it kind of led me to starting to look into companies that allow you to do that in terms of speech therapy. And I have 14 years of experience and many certifications as well, which I actually got a lot of them during the pandemic as well. But I realized they'll pay you peanuts. I was like, I'm not going to take peanuts because I feel like I'm worth more than that. And what's really the point? Like, why would I have gone to school for all that long? And a lot of these positions will pay you as an independent contractor, which is something I've done in the past. But of course, then, as you know, you pay a lot of money in taxes. So even if they're paying you, let's say $40 or $50 an hour, you're not making all of that money up front if they're not taking out taxes. If they are, of course, it's a different story. So yeah, really, I said, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to start my own company. I had encouragement, thankfully, from my lovely family members. Some of them actually have businesses of their own. And they'd actually encouraged me to do it in the past, especially my brother and sister-in-law, because they're both lawyers and they both have their own practices as well in Houston. So that's pretty much how I decided to do it. Hey, I can I'll have to, spend money up front to get the business rolling, but eventually I can have more flexibility and I can be making more money, and it's on my terms.
Cool. Yeah. How about additional question? What has been your biggest struggle and biggest victory in your private practice, starting your private practice?
So I like to start with the positive. So biggest victory, I will answer first. Biggest victory, I would say, is just the fact that I have been able to see multiple clients already. And I'm just really excited about that. And also just figuring out that Facebook marketing really works. And that's actually how I've gotten all my clients thus far. One actually is off of Nextdoor, but again, still social media. Biggest struggle, I would say for me personally, is realizing that I have to ramp up my self-care even more. And I have to be very specific about my own boundaries. So you know what? I'm not going to work 7 days a week just because I have my own business. So I realized, honestly, even just in the past couple of weeks, that I have to take weekends for me. And, I have to be still a rounded person. I should be able to talk about more than just work.
Yeah. That's really good, though, because I feel like a lot of people with businesses, too, they just work and work and work, especially if they're just starting off. So
I feel attacked again.
I mean, I did do that until a couple of weeks ago. But now I'm realizing that you can burn out very early, as especially as a pretty new entrepreneur. That's not the plan. This is something we want to sustain.
Yeah, definitely take the time for yourself, self-care, and make sure that you can continue to move forward. And so
And the other thing I would say is just the fact that it can be challenging because I'm one person and I'm the only person in my business right now. And although I do have the support of my amazing husband, we got married a couple months ago. Exciting. Yeah, he's extremely supportive, which is very helpful. We talk about a lot of things. I joke that he's the co-CEO of Super Speech Solutions. So it's really great to have his support. So I don't really feel like I'm doing it all by myself. But I mean, honestly, I look forward to the day where I can hire someone to do marketing, because I feel like that's a whole thing just by itself. It can take a lot of time. Hello. Are you hinting at something over there?
Oh my God. I feel you on that with marketing, even though, like young, 23, whatever. I'm just so bad with social media. Like I don't keep up as often with it, that sort of stuff. And even then I don't know how to use multiple functions of it or how to benefit a lot from the marketing aspect. So I'm like, thank God we got you, Mike.
So Mike is the marketer.
Yeah, he's the one that handles the social media accounts and everything. So.
Okay. Meera, I do have a recommendation. Are you, in terms of being able to connect and build network, there's a new app called Clubhouse. Have you checked it out or explored it?
Funny that you asked, because multiple people have told me about it. I have not, because right now I have a Facebook account. I have Instagram account, which I actually have two, because personal and business, really, I use them both for business now. And I have LinkedIn, and I honestly don't even like social media, truth be told. I wasn't even on it before I started my company, and I launched the company that way. So I get that it's an amazing thing to be on, but I just don't feel like I have the time for something else right now, especially to learn something new. But yes, I've heard it's very beneficial and valuable for multiple other people.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been on it for like 2 months, and I've been able to build relationship with people because it's basically a live engagement in essence. It's like this, but on an app. So if anyone say anything that is incorrect, you can actually correct them, and you learn a lot in terms of other people's practice, depending on the industry that you're a part of and whatever your interest is. So yeah, definitely. When you have time, when you're ready, you can check it out.
Yeah. Is it people all over the world who use it? Or?
Yes, all over the world. It's like 24 hours. There's rooms. There's engagement. There's any and everything topic under the sun. It's there. You can find it.
I feel like there's a lot. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let me pick apart your brain for a second. How do you find it helpful? I'm especially curious now.
I think in terms of for me, I'm Filipino in America. I'm a community organizer. I have a business. I have a streetwear brand, and I just opened up a shop. We're in the shop right now, and I've been able to connect with other creatives and other entrepreneurs that their products are actually in the shop. So I'm building community. And then I'm about to launch an NFT collection, non-fungible token, around June, which I've been able to connect with a computer engineer through the Clubhouse that is actually assisting and helping me to put this together, this plan. And that's the space where I learn about NFT and cryptocurrency. And
nice.
To answer your question,
I was about to say, like,
all right.
I bet there's a lot of
hello business. Awesome.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about how like Bitcoin and like cryptocurrency was like becoming popular, and I was about to say there's probably a lot of rooms that involve that.
Yeah. So NFT in terms of NFT, like it's like basically in line with like Clubhouse. There's a lot of conversation around it. So if you're curious to learn about anything in regards to any topic, you can just find it and you can listen to people. And then when you're ready to engage, you just get on stage and talk about, I would love to hear you on those stages talking about your industry. So yeah.
Maybe I could find a book club.
Yeah.
There you go.
So back to Meera.
Anyways, I kind of wanted to backtrack because my mom's actually a special ed teacher. And she's also a case manager, so she handles individual education plans. And she told me she works with, if the student needs like a speech pathologist, she would contact whoever is in the district. And I was just wondering, you do, you work with
I did for my last job, so I have experience in writing IEPs and attending the ARDS meetings. I don't do it right now, but I did before for 9.5 years, actually, a long time.
Yeah, my mom asked me, she was like, ask her if she works with school districts. So I was like, okay. But yeah.
So the last job that I was in was actually someone else's private practice previously. And within that job, actually, the office that I was working at contracted with charter school districts here in Houston. And so one of the ones that I was at is a bilingual charter school district, which is very interesting because it's kids who speak English and Spanish and they get instruction in both. And then for a while, I was working in another one as well, again, contracted through the same office that is a Montessori charter school system, just one school by itself, both in different parts of Houston. So, but for both schools, I did attend the ARD meetings, which stands for Admissions Review and Dismissal, which essentially is the meeting the parent comes to with a speech therapist, any other therapists involved, like you said, the special education teacher, special education director, the principal, the whole team of people that actually decide everything related to the child's education in terms of their modifications in the classroom. And then for me, of course, I'm talking about speech therapy, what their goals are. Maybe if I did the evaluation, I'll talk about what I found in the evaluation for an initial meeting. Or if I didn't do the evaluation, sometimes I can, I might be reporting for the bilingual therapist who did the evaluation because I do therapy and there's someone else who does the evaluation.
Okay, that's very interesting. So complex. I feel like whenever like my mom talks about like individual education plans and all that stuff, I'm like, wow, like it's so catered to the individual. I'm just like, why can't everyone have that? Everyone have that in school, because I feel like I don't know, just going through public school and stuff, I feel like a lot of kids have to just go through it alone, you know, and it kind of sucks. But
I definitely want to expand on that comment and that statement. In terms of your industry and the work you do, how do you make it more accessible to the general public that are economically challenged? You know, in terms of creating a system with, in terms of partnership with government and the resources that they have, how can we make that more accessible to public schools?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, really, public schools do have speech therapy services as well. And typically that could be someone, I mean, there are two different ways they could be working there. So it could be someone who's directly working for the school district, or it could be someone who's contracting through another company and then therefore at the school district. So, I mean, you typically will find, so what happens, the difference is in public schools, sometimes that same speech therapist can be jumping between multiple campuses.
Yeah.
Because one school by itself may not have a big enough caseload. So typically, I would say for a full-time speech therapist in schools, an average caseload could be 50 or more kids. I mean, I'm ballparking, but there was one school year where I was at a school by myself, and I was by myself responsible for 65 kids, which is a pretty high caseload for one person.
Yeah.
How much do they make? So let me sign up. They need more? I'll play.
And we're back for the absurdity of the day. Oh.
Hey. So Jonathan, what is our absurdity of the day?
Not again. So what's the difference between roast beef and pea soup?
Roast beef and pea soup.
You can roast beef, but you can't pea soup.
We don't have a...
Hey.
I thought we didn't have a button, but we did. And also our sponsorship goes to...
Hey, it's Mike D. UGAT Clothing. Come check out the shop. We just opened last week, and we will be hosting a Filipino dessert pop-up at the shop next weekend. So come check that out. Again, we'll have
Next
Filipino dessert. Yeah.
Sorry, what date? Because we're posting this on Tuesday.
It's Saturday and Sunday. Every Saturday and Sunday, I'll be hosting it. So just come through a weekend. We'll have food. We'll have desserts. And so, our address is 919 Oakland Road, San Jose, California. Come check it out. UGAT Clothing. Let's go.
Ooh, so y'all want some Filipino food? Filipino food?
And
only?
some sweets.
Some sweets?
No.
Are we going to have some Cambodian food from the people next door?
Yeah.
If you ever come to Mike's shop, there's a Cambodian place right next to it. It's so good.
Oh my God. It's
so
just
good.
the bomb. I spent so much money in that shop. All right. Back to Meera.
Sounds good. Okay, so Meera, I noticed in your bio that it said teletherapy. So I didn't know what that was. So I searched it up and I was like, oh, okay, like that's interesting. Because I never really knew there was a name for like therapy through, screen and online therapy. So I just, I was wondering if you also did that prior to COVID. I know you said you worked at a school district and with a private practitioner, but did you ever do it through teletherapy, or did you? Is that a new thing that you've been doing?
That's a new thing. I actually started at some point after the pandemic. But wait, there's more. I actually
drum roll. Let's go.
I'll make the announcement early for you. I'm actually starting home visits in some parts of the city of Houston, actually starting in June.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yes. Is everything open?
Which I think that'll be good, because I feel like I actually had calls from parents that I actually turned down, I would say, in the past couple of months, because I wasn't doing in person yet, because I was waiting to get vaccinated and figure out, as all of us were trying to figure out what the heck's going on with COVID, et cetera. But I feel like now that things thankfully have calmed down at least a little bit and a lot more people are vaccinated, I think now definitely more parents certainly and people are looking for an in-person speech therapist, especially someone who can come to your house. Very cool.
Yeah.
What's it called?
Teletherapy?
Teletherapy.
Am I saying that right? Teletherapy.
Okay.
That's right. Teletherapy. So it just means doing therapy by means of, some kind of online communication system. Yeah. So in my case, I've been using Zoom, but some people there are all kinds of other platforms. I mean, I don't even know names of all of them. I think Google Meet has an option. I think Oh gosh, I don't even remember the other ones. There are a lot of them.
I think there's like Microsoft Teams or something like that too.
Yeah, Microsoft Teams has one. There are a lot. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Because I heard Telly, and I think the first thing I thought was Teletubbies.
Yeah, not the big colorful looking bears. No.
So you mentioned, going house to house, and which one do you prefer? Which one's kind of easier for you to do, or for?
I think they both have. I mean, part of me does kind of miss doing in-person sessions because, especially with working with kids and really young kids, certainly. The thing with doing online speech therapy is you're doing a lot of parent coaching. You can't do hands one-on-one. You can't do one-on-one, hands-on with a child. Who's, let's say, under 3 or under 4, under 5, for example, just because it's hard to do. They're not going to pay attention to a screen. So I think the aspect of doing it, in person is definitely different because anytime you're meeting someone face to face, so you get the whole energy, the whole vibe, you end up, I think, building a different kind of relationship. But I think online speech therapy can be good, especially for, I would say, especially in remote parts of Texas, for example. I can actually see anyone in the entire state of Texas since I'm licensed in Texas. So I think, remote speech therapy or online speech therapy would be more beneficial if, let's say, for example, I or another speech therapist specialized in a very specific area that it would be hard to find a speech therapist for in that state or that city. Or, if someone, like I said, is in a remote part of the state, a remote part of the city or a town where they don't have a lot of access to speech therapy, that's where I see online speech therapy making a huge difference. And also, I think a lot of parents or a lot of adults even like it for the convenience factor because you don't have to drive anywhere. That's really nice, especially, and I'm sure since you guys are in San Jose, traffic, I'm sure, is crazy.
Yeah.
In Houston, traffic is nutty. I mean, it's insane. It's probably not a whole heck of a lot different. So I think people like the convenience factor because they can be at home. They can still get the speech therapy done. I think it generally is more effective for the older kids who are able to sit there by themselves. They know what we're doing in therapy. They can focus. And in the last few minutes, their mom or dad, for example, can come in and I can talk to them about what we did. So I definitely think both have advantages and different disadvantages and different advantages. But I think that it doesn't work for every population, certainly.
I definitely have an extra question. I think you talked about in terms of you being licensed in Texas and things have opened up in regards to the, what do you call it,
Teletherapy?
Teletherapy. So would that open up in regards to being licensed to other states and using that platform to actually be able to see other people through Teletubbies? I mean, what do you call it?
Teletherapy.
Yeah. So that's my question.
Right. So right now, the way ASHA, which stands for the American Speech and Hearing Association, essentially they're the national governing body over all speech therapists in the entire United States. So right now they are still saying that everyone has to be licensed in their individual state. However, right now there's a big petition and I can't remember, there's some fancy sounding name. I forget what it's called, but now certain states are actually able to sign up where they have reciprocity with other states if they're part of this one agreement. But I don't think Texas is on it yet from what I know offhand. And I know there may be about 10 states that are on it so far. That won't launch until 2022. But what I'm glad to know is that would, like you're saying, include telepractice, which is also another word for teletherapy. So I feel like we're getting to the point where people are recognizing, hey, if I want to see a therapist in Texas and I'm in California, I should be able to see someone who's in another state. And those states should be okay with that because you can't find what you're looking for everywhere. So I'm glad that there is movement for that to change because I think it can be frustrating for a lot of people. I sometimes have been approached by people from other states, but yeah, I would have to be licensed in the state that they're in. And that's not an overnight process. You have to get, for example, since I'm in Texas, I would have to get the Texas State Board to send all my paperwork to whichever other board I'm applying for. And sometimes you have to do fingerprints and I don't know, other stuff like that.
Cool.
I think that's the beauty of, social media is just you could connect so far and like you have so many sources that you could use. Like, now there's like, especially I feel like during the pandemic, I think a really popular thing is like therapy through an app. I forgot what it's called, but you can get like emotional therapy through through your phone. So,
yeah. It's actually happening. Yeah, there's apps, there's websites that you can just log on and talk to someone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what has been the biggest, I guess, hill that you had to climb over with the 14 years of experience that you've had with speech therapy? What has been the hardest for you?
That's a very thought-provoking question.
So we do.
I think overall there can be challenges in working with coworkers if they have a different personality than you. I've certainly come across that during my career. But I also think that sometimes there can be challenges in the clients you work with or with their parents. So I kind of feel like I've had a little bit of all of those, really. So I think there are multiple challenges like any other career you can come across, but I really think there are good ways to handle that. And personally, I know this question is coming later on because I cheated. I looked at the question. I would just like to say that I'm a big proponent of meditating every day. And without doing that every morning, my husband and I have this big running joke that if I don't do it in the morning, it ends badly for him and for me. Because really for him, I should say, because, well, I guess for me also, because I can feel it. So I think if you have some kind of practice like that, it can really just help you stay grounded. And thankfully, that's something that my parents thought to take me to a course in the past and introduce me to from a young age. So I find that you have to, I think in any career, no matter what you do, build in something like that, or maybe it's going for a walk in nature, some kind of activity where you can just get out of your own head.
Yeah.
I definitely feel you in struggling in terms of working with people. Wink, wink.
Uh-oh. Are we talking about people in the same room?
Yeah, nope, it's Kyle. That's why he's not here. I'm just kidding.
All right, Mike's next. It's just going to be my Champ and Simone next week.
Right. I think you'll really like Kyle because Kyle is very big on meditating right now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, hi, Kyle. Hope to say hello another time.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to point out is I know a big thing for me is just ethics. And I think, again, that's true of every field. And I think it really infuriates me when I see people do things that are very unethical in terms of how they're treating clients or how they're treating other coworkers. That's the stuff that really gets under my skin when I feel like I just see very unethical things happen. Like if someone has let their license expire. I mean, come on, it's not rocket science. We all know in Texas, your license is going to expire every 2 years. You even know it's going to be the month you're born in. So mine will be in December of next year, for example.
Yeah.
You know, things like that I'm like, come on, you knew that.
Yeah.
Like, you knew that was a big issue. Hello.
Yeah. I think because whenever I complain to my parents a lot and they always try to tell me, look, wherever you go, whatever profession you choose, or, you know, you'll come through like people that you're not going to get along with, but you have to, you know, you have to pretty much like make peace with it. You have to figure out a way to cope with it and be okay with working with people you don't really get along with. So
I get along with everybody.
Oh, well then it doesn't apply to you, Mike. Forget that whole topic altogether.
You know,
he's like everyone loves me.
You know, I'll send you
the other thing I was gonna say is sometimes as I feel like in all honesty, it's easier for men to assert themselves, but I feel like for us women, sometimes we have a more challenging time with that, and we feel like we can come across as being mean, etc. So I feel like I have learned how to rise to the challenge of asserting myself or setting boundaries when I need to. So I feel like difficult people can teach you something if you're willing to learn the lesson.
Yes. I think in any struggle, in any form of struggle, there's always a lesson to learn in regards to and how you cope and how you deal with the situation. And so I think sometimes we focus so much on the external aspect on what's happening, but those are opportunity to grow, you know, for ourselves in, you know, strengthening our capacity to learn and deal with other people. So
and sometimes I think you just have to see them as learning what not to do.
Exactly. I know not to mess with that person.
Yeah, exactly.
I think how you mentioned, you know, assertiveness, and that's something that I've, I'm only 21, and I feel like that's something that I really needed to learn how to do when like going through life, because I've been in situations in the past where it didn't end up good, and I ended up not being in a good place just because I wasn't assertive enough, or I didn't stand up for myself. So yeah. Yeah.
Confrontation.
Right? But
Yes.
what was I gonna say?
I love confrontation. It's again, it's like I love any form of just engagement.
Call me out.
Yeah, and I'm straight in terms of like people around me. Like, let me know if I ever, take a misstep. You have to let me know. I want to be criticized, and this is how we keep ourselves accountable to each other, to the people that we love, the people around us. So we have to be able to do that. So if if you do something wrong, I want to be able to be comfortable enough to say, hey, this is what's the impact. I'm curious what your intent was, and then have a conversation. And so that's how we build relationships.
Yeah, and I feel like that also like saves relationships too, especially like if you're on the receiving end of it. I feel like, some people can be very defensive. They're like, oh, I didn't do that. Like, oh, I didn't make you feel this way, or like, what are you even talking about? But then I feel like if, you have that certain defensive trait, that you need to, kind of calm down, because the person is trying to solve an issue that they have. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people get scared at the word confrontation, right? Because they think like, all right, pull them up, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go. Yeah. But it's not even that like that. It's like, as Mike said, right? It's a form of engagement, and you just have a conversation and you square things up, right? Like in terms of expressing how you feel and just wanting to address issues. And I know it's not easy, because I've been there before, right? But similarly to what you were talking about earlier, like ethics, just morality, that sort of stuff, that's something that that's a value I uphold as well. And so even if I got a friend that's been doing some like dumb stuff, or just doing some stuff that a lot of other folks don't like, I'm not afraid to be the first one to kind of jump at it. Not necessarily be like, hey, you're in the wrong, blah, 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 let's go fight. It's just more so like bringing attention to it, because I've been in situations where a group of friends won't say anything, and they'll just enable the behavior.
Because they're too afraid. They don't want to be the one not agreeing.
Exactly. Yeah. And for me, that infuriates me. And I understand, right? It's hard, but it's just sort of like, so instead of standing up for yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like, you'd rather get stepped on, but you're continuously complaining about being stepped on. And so it's just sort of like, I can't stand that. So I'm always willing to just throw myself into the fire and just go in and be like, hey man, we got to talk about this. Or like, yo, there's a situation going on and I want to have a conversation with you about it, sort of stuff. But it's also being mindful of how you approach it, right? Because with my parents, whenever there's an issue, they just kind of like bark. And I'm just sort of like, yo, you're not going to solve anything if you're just barking, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you also have to be mindful as the approacher in those situations about, you know, like very famously in psychology, right? You say I, not you, like pointing fingers, that sort of stuff. Yeah. So
I could be wrong, but I'm curious as to what you meant by
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, this is kind of like a step over, but so I was looking at when I was looking at your post, I was looking at all like your certifications, and I was like, what are all those letters, and what does that even mean? So can you give like a brief explanation of all your certifications? Yeah.
Do we have time for that?
That's a whole other hour of the episode, bro.
Right? I know. I'm like, are you prepared?
Let's go.
Let's hear it.
I got my notepad. Let's go.
So first of all, I will say that I got these all pretty recently. So what is good that has come out of the pandemic is my certifications and my business, which is pretty fun. All of those things. Yay. But you were asking about all the letters. So I have a specialization. So I have a certification in telepractice, which is the same thing. Like we're talking about teletherapy, online speech therapy. So the BC, oh my gosh, even I have to look at it. BCTS, Board Certified Telepractice Specialist. So yeah, so that's just saying I specialize in doing online speech therapy.
Okay.
And then the ACAS, Advanced Certified Autism Specialist. So I specialize in working with, people who have autism or autistic individuals, I should say. I think you can I've heard it said different ways, but I think autistic individuals or autistic children is the preferred term. And then I also have a certification in DRI and floor time. And that one's really cool. So that's a whole method that we could spend a whole lot of time talking about. But the essential idea behind that methodology is that you should follow the child's lead or the individual's lead. And you should not be talking as much. So you should give them more time to respond. And you should not be the one essentially running the entire show.
Cool. How about the DOPE certification?
Oh, that one sounds cool. I already have that.
Okay.
I already have that. And then there's actually one more that I'm actually in the process of doing right now. So that's a certification through ASHA, the American Speech Language and Hearing Association, specifically in child language. So that one is pretty extensive process. You actually have to do 3 different phases. So it takes quite a while. I finished the first phase and I'm working on the second phase. So the first phase, you have to do 100 continuing education units or hours just in intermediate and advanced child language. And you also have to submit your whole resume, which I think is supposed to be around a page. Then the second phase that I'm getting ready to submit in a couple of weeks is writing a paper on what you think about the acquisition and development of language. Then the third phase is actually taking a case history and doing a whole write-up example of someone that you work with.
Wow.
Just to clarify, just there's no misunderstanding. I was DOP because you're dope, I don't want people to misunderstand,
Oh, not other meanings of that.
Yes. Well, let's clarify, that's how we have to do it.
Funny.
So what do you enjoy most about your profession?
It's never the same. You're never seeing the same kind of client. You're never treating for the same thing. Even all of the autistic children I work with are different ages. We're working on different things. And as everybody knows, it's a spectrum disorder. So there's a very wide range in, even if you're treating language, you can be doing a lot of different things. You can literally never get bored. If I hear someone say that as a speech therapist, they're getting bored, I don't know what they're doing because there's so much to do.
There's so much to do.
So I would not be able to identify with that comment at all. I absolutely love being a speech therapist. This is what I wanted to do. So I'm thrilled that I get the chance to help people.
I'm curious, I'm a migrant. I came here when I was young in the US, 11 years old. And so basically, I don't have I'm not great at my own native language. I can speak it, but not like really well versed in it. And then also in English, I struggle with also just really articulating myself. I'm just curious, trying to use your consultation right now. What would you recommend in terms of strengthening my capacity to articulate my thoughts?
So when you say articulate your thoughts, it sounds like you're talking about expressing yourself in words.
Yeah, because sometimes there's when I'm having conversations, I struggle with finding the right words to express. So I end up using another word, which might not be in line with what I'm trying to say.
I see. Yeah. I mean, I think that can fall under something called word finding. Like you may struggle to think of the right word, use the right word, like you're saying, but sounds like you have a way of going around that if you're using a synonym, like a word that means the same thing.
Okay. I'm going to play a song.
I mean, if people are still understanding what you're saying, you're still getting your point across. I don't think that's a problem.
Okay, I'll just play crossword puzzle to help you.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Hey, why not? Yeah.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because that's one of the main reasons why I started reading a lot is because I was like, I feel like I don't know enough words to express the emotions or express what I want to express. So that's why I read a lot because each time I read, every time I don't know a word, like what they teach you in school, like write it down and search it up. So I literally have a book of words that I didn't know, and I just write down like what they mean, and then I try to use it in language. Okay, sample. What was
that one word that you were like, oh, what is this? And you were able to learn it, and now use it in a sentence. Let's go.
Quagmire.
I don't know. I really don't know. I have a list on my phone, so let me refresh my memory too.
Okay.
I have a list on my phone too.
Okay, so I think I'll take that advice. I think what she's saying is that I need to read more books.
I mean, those are some of the common recommendations. It's just like read. I remember in 9th grade, my speech and debate teacher. He recommended me to read books so I can understand more, or like come across different words and look them up, understand them, and that sort of stuff. And I was just like, read. but I actually had this one English teacher in 11th and 12th grade. I just so happened to be in her classes back to back, and she would give us these like vocabulary assignments, and they were cool. It was a little repetitive, but I mean, like I came across different words, and I I became fascinated with them. I was like, oh, I've never heard this word. Like this word is spelled weird, but that's kind of cool. But the other thing too, and I've mentioned this a lot on podcast episodes, was just my love and fascination with hip hop. Specifically, my favorite artist, Eminem. I'm a lyricist. Yeah, like a lyrical analyst. Oh, okay. So I'm always looking up lyrics, and I'm trying to see how literary devices are used and how certain lyrics are formulated with different lines. And so with Eminem, he just would always use different words. And he's done interviews where he's talked about how, I've read the dictionary multiple times, and
that's cool.
He talked about how he uses that sort of like, in his analogy, like as a gun, right? He was like, if I can get more words in my arsenal, then when it comes to rapping or rap battling or whatever it is, I have more words at my disposal that I can use to further even help me out with, rhyming and that sort of stuff. And so I started listening to his music in 9th grade, and I looked up his lyrics, and I came across so many different words, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, take that, 9th grade teacher. Hip hop.
That's dope.
I'm still on the spot.
Okay.
Yeah, what's your word?
I forgot my word already. But I don't know if this is the correct pronunciation, but it's just a noun. It's detritus. It means debris. Detritus. Is that how you say it? I don't know. It means debris.
How's it spelled?
Detritus. Detritus.
Detritus.
Detritus. Oh.
It means debris. Okay.
So I guess there's a pile of detritus on the floor. There's a pile of debris on the floor. I could have just used debris. But yeah, I saw it in a book, and I was like, oh, interesting. I don't know what that means. I kind of got context clues, but sometimes like I worry that I didn't get the right word, like right meaning for it. So that's why.
Wow. Thank you for sharing the idea, and thank you for sharing the practice. So that's beautiful.
I also recommend Stephen A. Smith from ESPN. He vouches himself as, like someone who's educated and all this sort of stuff, and he'll use different words too on his sports commentary. Like I just came across like asinine, and I was like, oh, what's that? I was like, oh, that's dope. Or like comportment, or blasphemous, or stuff like that.
That's blasphemy. I love saying that.
Why would you say something like that? That's blasphemous. So yeah, I just use different mediums as well to brush up on vocabulary as well.
So speaking of like learning and like learning new words and stuff, what would you suggest for young kids or young students, I guess, that want to get into speech therapy? What is your main advice for them?
Do it, but do it for the right reasons. Do it because you want to help people.
No, don't do it for the money. I feel like
really don't do any job for the money. It's not really the right reason. It is a reason, yes, but it's not going to sustain you long-term happiness.
Yeah.
Right. So now I'm curious in terms of that answer. What did motivate you in terms of what specific event or experience that led you to like, this is what I want to do because I want to help, or I want to have a social impact in these conditions?
So my dad is a radiologist by profession, and he'd been working with speech therapists at the hospital. So thanks to my dad, I even found out what speech therapy is, because honestly, I didn't even know what it was. I'd never heard the term, had no idea what a speech therapist does. So at the time, my dad was working at the hospital, And for 2 weeks, I essentially observed occupational therapists, physical therapists, and speech therapists all at the same time. And honestly, the second I saw what a speech therapist does, I thought, I want to be that person who's helping someone communicate. So I actually got to watch a speech therapist go into some kind of intensive care unit. I don't remember specifically what was wrong with this person. I think he had suffered some kind of gunshot wound. And one of the other areas speech therapists can help with, I forgot to mention, is with the area of voice. And so something was wrong with his vocal cords. He had some kind of pathology. I don't recall the specifics because this is back when I was in high school, or I just finished high school. But she actually was helping him communicate and could tell him exactly what he needed to do. And I could hear a little bit of his voice. And to me, it was just amazing that communication is such a big skill. And if that's something we can help someone with, I mean, oh my gosh, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
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 That's wild.
Yeah. I don't know. I was going to say something.
Go ahead.
No, I forgot. I can't communicate. See,
Let me figure out what you're communicating.
Yeah. But we're coming to the end of this interview, or, so I wanted to ask, do you have anything special coming up? I know you mentioned something earlier, but do you have any updates on what's to come with Super Speech Solutions?
So I actually forgot to mention earlier, but my family originally, I'm third generation Indian. So my parents actually grew up in Uganda and Africa, which is also a fun story for another time. But anyways, I wanted to mention that I did start teaching Hindi and Gujarati classes online. So that's something I started doing a couple of weeks ago. So the cool thing about that is, because I don't have you don't have to have a specific certification for that. I can teach anyone, anywhere. And it's because it's online. It doesn't just have to be specifically anyone in Texas. So I've actually really been enjoying that. That's been really fun for me.
That's interesting. Well, thank you, Meera, for, doing this interview with us. And I'll have all your links down below so you guys can check her out. If you're in Texas, she's the girl for you. If you need any services, she got you. But yeah, thank you again. And yeah, I think we're going to sign off now.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hey. Thank you, Meera.
Thank you.
We will definitely have to do another round of an interview in the future. So.
Vocabulary word. Asinine. Teletubbies.
And we out.